All right, so the plan for today is to start on coating this pan. I've got it all cleaned up. It's in the stand so I can access both sides. I'm going to prime it, I'm going to seam seal, and then we're going to top coat it. All right, so here's the products I'm going to be coating the pan with. I'm starting out with Master Coat. I've been using this stuff for a long time. It's like a gray kind of primery rust paint. It goes on, it's got like crushed aluminum in it, so it fills in a lot of pits. I've used it on a lot of frames. It just brushes on and it ends up like kind of self-leveling. Works really good. I'm gonna seam seal with this stuff, and then I'm going to do a Raptor liner top and bottom on the pan, and we'll see how it comes out. Hopefully it all works out good. Raptor liner sprays on. I've never used it before, but we'll see. It, you know, it looks pretty good online. Texture wise, I think it'll be good for this chassis. So bring you back as we put it on. All right, so I've got the first initial coat of the Master Series on. Everything I can read is basically telling me that before I seam seal, I should really put primer on. My primer in this case is this stuff. So what I've done after I clean the pan really well, I used phosphoric acid on it and then wiped it all back down with acetone. So it's all nice and clean. A lot of the surface rust has come off of it because of the phosphoric acid. That's just another thing I always do. It's kind of a mess, but it does a good job at cleaning up stuff. So what I did yesterday is I did a first coat of the Master Series in all of the seams where I thought I may or may not seam seal it, just so that it has basically a primer between the metal and the seam sealer. And then the Raptor liner is telling me that I need to, or at least what I'm seeing online, that I can't just put Raptor liner directly over seam sealer, I guess. I guess they tell you that you should really put like an adhesion promoter or like a coat of primer or something. So my plan is this first coat, do all the seams, then run the seam sealer in, and then once the seam sealer is dry, I'll put a second coat of this stuff over those areas. These original pan sections, I did a first coat, and I'll do a second coat on. Master Series recommends 2 coats. I generally, on something this clean that's really not that rusty, and it's going to get top coated heavy anyway, I usually do 1, maybe I'll do 2 in areas that it seems like it needs it, but it's just what works for me. You follow the directions and do what you want to do to get it done the right way. So that's where I'm at. This is all been on here for 24 hours. I started seam sealing, and it just goes on with this caulking gun here I got. Seems to flow out pretty good. I've never used this product before either. Seems to flow out pretty good. I basically just kind of put a small slow bead on, and then I ran my finger over it to smooth it in. And it was basically on this area, it's just to get rid of that weld line I had between the original floor pan and this. And then once the Raptor liner goes on, hopefully the texture of that will pretty much conceal all of that. And it'll just kind of look like a stamped pan more than a fabricated pan, I guess. So that's where I'm at. I'll do a couple small lines of the seam sealer just so you can kind of get an idea how it goes. But obviously it's not real exciting, so I probably won't show you a whole lot of that. Get the camera set up here, get a rubber glove back on. And I'm just using, like, this caulking gun's just a, I don't know what, I think it's a Ryobi or something. It's just a power one, just so you don't have to sit there and keep pumping and pumping. I've had it for years. I bought it to do stuff on my house, and then it ended up, it's just the main caulking gun I end up using. But this is basically all I'm doing on this seam is I'm just kind of running through. They tell you got 15 minutes from when this stuff comes out before it kind of skins over. So I'm just trying to run it on there, kind of feather it into the edges. That's pretty much it. Nothing overly exciting, but I'm debating whether I'm going to do all the way around here on this seam. I guess if I can get it to look like that, where that came out pretty good, then it probably wouldn't hurt just to seal it up. Car has no roof on it, so it's stopping water from getting in a puddle or whatever else is kind of a a novelty, I guess. I don't know. There's no roof on the car, so if it's pouring out and I'm driving, the car on the street, the whole car is going to get soaked inside and out anyway. So really sealing this pan off is more, I guess, for aesthetics. Maybe it'll stop moisture from getting into the seam and kind of blowing it out because it's obviously not primed between these two pieces of metal. So that's kind of my main reason for doing the seam sealer on it. But so I'm going to get that all seam sealed up. No reason for you to sit here and watch me squish putty around. So I'll bring you back when we get going on the first full coat of the primer. All right, so I'm going to start priming this, painting it, whatever we want to call this stuff. It is a paint. It's just a lot of people use it as a primer, so it's kind of how I use it too. I believe you can use it as like a top coat underneath a car or whatever. I don't even think it has UV issues, but they do recommend, 3 coats if you do it that way. So here's the consistency of this. It's relatively thin paint. A quart goes a long way. And you literally just brush it on, but you'll see that it goes on and it spreads pretty well. Try to get all the spots in here. But I'm gonna do 1 full coat, and if it looks like it needs a second one, then I'll do a second one. But like I said before, I'm gonna spray the plan is to spray the Raptor liner over this. So I think between this and the Raptor liner, it's gonna have plenty of thickness of coating on it. Sometimes when you do this with just 1 coat, you will get brush marks in it, but we'll see. I'll show you. It kind of levels out somewhat. I also am using cheap throwaway paintbrushes, so I'm gonna probably get some paintbrush hairs in here too that I'll pull out what I can that's easy, but I'm not overly worried about it. Again, because of that Raptor liner, it's a textured coating. I think most of this won't really matter, but we'll see. I'm not positive how that stuff's gonna come out. I mean, I've seen a lot of videos. I'm sure a lot of people have watched a lot of videos, and it seems like it shoots out pretty good. Seems like you can get a fairly easy texture. There's a lot of videos out there of people, like me, that have never done it before and they're trying it for the first time, and seems like they get good results, but you never know. I'm gonna do a second coat on all of this. And I'm mostly doing a second coat on this right now because you have to top coat this. If you're gonna top coat it, you have to top coat it within 48 hours. If you don't, they want you to scuff it up, and all these little edges and things like that in this would make it pretty hard to scuff everything up. So I'm gonna try real hard to get this all coated, let it sit for a day, and then just get the Raptor liner on it. and be done from that point, just so that I don't have to sand any of this in between. Anybody that's used a like a rust preventative type paint on metal pretty much has done this. You know, you usually most of those types of coatings are black. This one happens to be silver just because of the ground aluminum that's in it, and I guess that's kind of the difference with this one. A lot of the, I don't know if all silvers or silver paints that are made for rust preventative stuff are that way, but this one certainly is. And like I said, it's not, I mean, I have nothing to do with this company. I paid $60 for this quart of paint and waited 4 days for it to show up, just like anybody else would. And I've been using it for probably 20 years, 15 to 20 years. I've been exclusively using this particular brand paint for, you know, for rusted metal. You can use probably anything. I've had good luck with this, so that's the reason I use it. Obviously, you know, choose whatever works best for you. But that's it. I'm gonna I'll shut up and just get this painted on here. Maybe I can fast forward the video through this part so it just goes quicker for everyone. All right, so I get the pan all coated. I get the areas I don't want Raptor liner on taped off, plastic, paper, whatever it takes. I got there's a few holes in the chassis that are for certain things. Trying to stop filling all the threads with the coating. And back here where the VIN number is, I kind of made a, you know, a half circle type thing going on just to cover the access panel hole and the VIN number itself. You obviously don't want to load your VIN number up with a whole bunch of textured coating. So this is where I'm at. I got it dragged outside. I've got the gun cleaned out with acetone just to make sure that there's no crap in it, nothing going to cause a problem. And to get the air pressure adjusted, I'm going to try to spray this at 50 psi. They say between 40 and 60, and they say that the higher the psi, the better, like the tighter the texture will be, or at least that's what I'm reading. So I'm going to shoot it on this piece of cardboard, give it a shot first, see how that goes, and then try to get a coat on this chassis and see what happens. All right, we've done all the pretty much all the steps kind of the way they tell you to, so just kind of loosen that up from the bottom. So these cans, supposedly they take, so you rip this plastic piece off and it's still got foil in there, so this must be they really don't want this to dry up. Guess I'm just gonna punch a hole in it with that. It's already got black stuff coming out of it. They give you this cup that has a line on it. Add 8 ounces. Yeah, it's got a line on it, so you're just filling it right up to that line there. It's kind of nice to sort of pre-measure everything for you in a sense. If you buy the kit that only has one of these liters or quarts, yeah, if you buy the kit that only has 1 quart, they just give you the hardener in an amount that you could pour the whole thing into. But I didn't know how much I was going to need. They tell you what the coverage is, but you know how that kind of works. Sometimes companies are over, sometimes they're under. So we'll fill this up to this line. So I bought the one that has 4 of them in it, figuring what's the worst that happens, I have some left over and I'll use it for some other project down the road. So you pour this stuff into here, get it all down in there. And I've never used this before, so hopefully it doesn't suck, because if it sucks, it's going to be a real pain in the ass to get off there, or it's just going to be on there forever sucking. So tighten the cap, and then they tell you to shake it up for 2 minutes. So I'm going to shake it up for probably a little more than 2 minutes. You only get an hour of pot life on this stuff, so it's going to end up, you kind of got to move a little bit fast. I don't know. I mean, it's a small chassis I'm doing, so maybe it won't be that bad. I'll be curious to see how much of this one quart actually does. All right, I'm going to get you set up outside. I'm going to keep shaking this thing up, and then we'll do a test spray and see how it goes. All right, I've given this thing the full 2 minutes of shaking here. I think it's should be pretty good. We'll get this thing screwed on here. See if we can squirt a little out of here. I don't know if I'm gonna like the pressure, but we'll find out. All right, I think this pressure is pretty good. The pattern that it's kind of given me, the amount of texture seems like pretty much what I want. So I'm just gonna run with it and start hitting this thing. If it seems like it's coming out too much, I'll adjust on the fly type of thing. I don't know. I don't have like a regular vent, like a charcoal mask or anything, but I'm outside. I have a dust mask on, but I don't know if that's really even necessary. I'm gonna throw it on for now, just so I don't suck up the particles, I guess. But other than that, it's probably not gonna really do much. Well, I feel like that went pretty good for this side anyway. Here's a little bit of a close-up on the texture. We'll see what it how it dries up. They say you gotta wait an hour in between coats. I don't know if I'm gonna do 2 coats or not. I do have some, I can see that I have some tiger striping, they call it, where like I've got some areas where it's a little shinier than other areas, and they say afterwards you can do another coat and kind of just mist it on from a distance, and that'll kind of blend all that out. The only area I think I'm pretty concerned with is underneath this bottom lip here, all along here. I probably should have been a little higher off the ground just to make sure I could get in there, but I'll hopefully I can get it from the other side. I think I got the underside of this pan pretty good, but overall it's looks pretty good, and it definitely hides a lot of the garbage welds that are on here between mine and the ones that were done in the 70s, you know. So all right, I'm gonna finish the other side, and I'll bring you back when it's all done and show you how it came out. All right, so here's the chassis. The Raptor liner's all dry. It looks pretty good. The texture's pretty tight the way I wanted it, so that worked out. I went back through and I made sure I got all of the light spots before I put everything away and cleaned out the gun and everything. And I just finished a second coat on all of this rear suspension back here. This black paint is made by the same company that makes the gray paint that I use, the silver paint. It's basically their top coat. It brushes on the same way. It dries, it's kind of self-leveling, and it smooths out. Right now you can see it's got kind of a little bit of blotchiness to it, but for the most part, once this dries, this will all smooth out pretty good. Like it looks down there a little bit more. But that's it. That's going to be gloss. The main reason I did this gloss and I didn't just hit it with the Raptor liner is because the transmission sits in there, and over time it's a Volkswagen, so everything kind of leaks here and there over time. And I didn't think that having the textured coating on there would be a great idea with a transmission leaking a little bit of gear oil, or the engine leaking and getting back to, you know, this whole area back here, gumming it all up. I thought this would be just easier to clean if it was a smooth paint. And I did this end of the frame head with the same stuff, just so that it's not, you don't want like a textured coating in there, and then you try to put a beam on here, the front beam on, and you're squishing coating, or the coating's lifting it up on one side versus the other. It's kind of the same. I did the same thing with like these areas, the brake master cylinder, where that plugs into, kept it as smooth as possible. The shifter and the parking brake handle area, all done with the same way. This area, like I mentioned, I did it so that the VIN number isn't all screwed up in there. I think that's about all I can show you, but I'm pretty happy with it. From the bottom, if you look at like this pan drop and stuff that I've got finished up here, it looks pretty good. And once you make it all one color, and your seams are sealed and everything's kind of hit with this textured paint, it looks pretty good. It doesn't look like something, to me anyway, it doesn't look like something somebody just kind of threw together real quick. It does look like, you could kind of think it looks a little bit like a Volkswagen pan, and that was kind of my idea, was to try to keep it looking that way. You can still see where I welded in the patch panels here. You can see the welding line just a little bit here. So it's one of those things, if you really wanted it perfect, you could have smoothed out the welding like this. You can see this section here where I had put in this whole panel here. This part came out pretty good because this whole section's been replaced, and you can't see too much of that. But again, it's a Dune Buggy. It's not, there's no intention of this ever being a show car. It's just going to be a driver, and hopefully get used here and there throughout the good weather. So that's That's about it on the pan. You can see it, these welds here. Covers them up pretty good between the seam sealer and that. But I'm pretty happy with it. I'm gonna let it dry for, I don't know, 3 days or so to make sure it's really cured. 3 to 5 days, I think. Give it a week. I'll work on something else in the meantime. And then once it's dry, I'll come back and we can flip this pan back over, get it flat on the floor with some jack stands, and then start working on this mess here. We got a front beam to clean up. We got a transmission to clean up. All that's gonna get painted. I got disc brakes for the front, new brakes for the rear. I'm trying to think, what else do I got here? I got hoses. I got to run all the steel lines for the brakes all on the chassis. I think that's it. I'm gonna have to, at some point, I'm probably gonna have to build a motor for this thing. That's the one that came out of it over there. It's just a 1600 stock dual port. It runs okay. It's got some blow by, if I remember right. When this car was being used more often, you could see some blow by kind of coming up through the breather tube. Might be a problem, might not be. The car was used off and on, so it would it might sit a year, and then the next year he'd use it 2, 3, 4 times throughout the summer, and then that was it again. And then maybe some years he really got on and used it a lot, but it kind of had a varying amount of use over the years. So the engine's probably an excellent spare or even a starting point for an engine, but I have a 1600 torn apart on the bench that it's already been line bored and had some other work done to it. It's got a lot of new parts, but it wasn't assembled correctly. So I got it all pulled apart. It's actually never even been fired. So I'm gonna replace a lot of the junk parts that are on it. And then I might just use that in this car for a little bit. And then if I decide to go with a bigger one, I got a big one on the shelf that's just sitting, and it would need a different transmission. This transmission probably wouldn't handle the other one. It's a 2180, so it's decent size. But that's it. Good look at how this worked out. Nobody's going to see the underside much, but I'm pretty excited about how it looks and how those 2 pan drops worked out, and you don't really notice it too bad. On the side, you'll see just that little bit of a drop through there that kind of looks like stock Volkswagen a little bit, and overall, So pretty good. Thanks for watching. All right, so with the chassis all painted up, I'm going to attempt to lay this back down flat. I'm gonna put the clamps back on. I gotta pull the screws out of this this frame. All right, screws are out. I have my jack stands kind of laid out, and I've put a rag on the top of each one and taped it in place so it can't fall over as easy or fall off the jack stand as easy. My plan here is to pull the front one, so that's totally loose. This one, same same thing. So this whole thing should be loose now. Obviously I don't want to scratch it up too bad since it's just been painted. I have the wheels locked on the cart. So I'm going to try to lower this down and see if I can get one corner under on the jack stand. It's gets some weight to it, but it's not awful. Not bad. So that's on there now, that's stable. I can probably lift this corner and slide it down, right? Need to do the same with the front. The only problem is you get the weight of the wood on it too now. There we go. So I've obviously got one jack stand's a little lower back here. But I'll get that all leveled out. And that's it. That's it's back flat again. So that's pretty good. Pretty happy with this whatever tilting frame thing that I put together here. So that's back on jack stands. We've got, that just needs to be unbolted now. So I'll grab some tools and get that all unbolted, but we're in a spot now where I can pretty much get this chassis level and then start getting stuff put back on it. Pretty good.